interrupted because I was getting Dairy Queen, stopping for lunch, and a Blizzard. By the way, it cost $5 that Blizzard, so next time definitely not. And got gas. But what we were talking about, where I was talking about narrative and story and books and truth, absolute truth. Just the fact that there are books proves the fact that there's meaning, or at least that people strive to find meaning and they find value in that, and they believe that story is something worth sharing. And nonfiction usually is a how-to or someone's experience, what they've learned in their life. It's all very instructional. And fiction is, in a sense, it's the same. It's just told through more of a story form. And you might say more idealistic, more the way we wish things were, or maybe situations being more black and white, more easier to understand life and what it means, and in some sense, you could say some books are more shallow in that it stereotypes things and makes things far too unrealistic. But I think a lot of people miss that the fantasy that some things that seem very different than reality can point to perhaps truth better than what we see today. See reality. I think of Lord of the Rings, my favorite, and we see good and evil more clearly. See the effects of evil and of good and what that means, and it helps us understand the forces of what's going on beyond the surface. And so there are elements in every story that it takes to have a good story, and that's having good and evil. That's having conflict. It's having a main character, or a bevy of main characters, and having protagonists, antagonists, different parts of the story, the beginning, the homeland, and the climax, and the journey, and the treasure, or the lesson learned. All these things are central in the story. If you don't have that, then it seems people don't like it. It's kind of empty. But now with postmodernism, we're trying to break the norm, trying to break these stereotypes, these story elements, or at least change them up enough to where it's unfamiliar or unexpected, which sometimes can be good, but oftentimes it's very bizarre and very disorientating and unfamiliar, and it's not something we can learn from or that's desirable, enjoyable, and I think it's generally proven that these things are just they're not as widely enjoyed by people, and I think it's because they try to deny absolute truth and understand what the reality of things are, and the purpose of stories is to find meaning, to try to understand things, whereas postmodernism is to try to confuse. And the stories that aren't accepted, that aren't enjoyed, aren't liked, is where there's no resolution, there's no lesson learned, things seem meaningless. Why would anybody want to watch that, or read that? It's just a waste of time, and it's hopeless, and it's not life, it's death. And so I would say that these things prove there's meaning, there's good and evil, and stories are descriptive. They play with things. They explore philosophy and the meaning of things, and the way they do that is through action, through a development. They don't just say this is the way it is and state that, and then just that's it. They say, let me show you what I believe and how it plays out. And so and it's a lot more gentle in what it believes, and showing that to the reader, the viewer, whereas nonfiction can be very abrupt or jarring. Just this is what I believe, and that's it. Story, you have to. Any good story is not going to preach you. It's going to gently suggest, and so we can. English is often it's exploring, what does this story mean? What is it telling us? What does it mean when we compare it to my life, or my experience, or my beliefs? Or has something similar happened to me, or something exactly like that, or is my experience totally different? Do we think that that's realistic? So we're wrestling, we're searching for meaning, and how well the story translates that, and that's how we judge how good the story is. And so English is all about philosophy in a sense, and worldview and understanding, empathy, also truth, love, and everything good, and it does. Good stories are not so simple that resolution is easy to come by, or the issues are so black and white that it's easy to figure out. Good stories show complicated issues and things that maybe not firmly resolute or we're not sure about, but hopefully through the story we can come to, if not a firm black and white conclusion, we can come to some lesson learned, another step in understanding that can help us navigate the world and life. Stories are so good. I think, especially in broadening your worldview, broadening your perspective in life, your understanding, your experience. I would say that I've experienced far more lives and been more places than I'll ever be in real life or experience in the short time I have to live on this earth. And while direct experience is that's where we learn the most, still a lot of value and a lot of meaning can be picked up from reading. And the more our imaginations are connected to it, the more we feel, the more we see what's going on, the more meaning it's going to have for us, and the more we're going to learn from that. it helps us grow our imagination. So there's I like to have apologetics of English as far as why I think English is important and why reading is important, but in the bigger sense, how that speaks to Christianity and all the things that English does, that the good books do, points to Christianity. And there's meta narratives. Meta narratives are stories that repeat themselves over and over again, in different forms or fashions, but man versus man, man versus wild, man versus God, those things repeat themselves over and over again in story, and show how important that is, and I think how real it is to life. And as a hero, getting it's about love is one in a narrative. The mystery, search for meaning, finding the treasure, and then there's the mental, physical, spiritual journeys. So all these things are meta narratives, and they repeat themselves over and over again in different cultures, different times, different languages, but they're present, and shows how we can't really escape meaning. We can't escape these meta narratives, and so we can't, while we're fashioning different stories, the greater truth does not change. We still come to the same conclusions, come to the same conflicts that man has always faced. May look different, but history repeats itself over and over again, and that's something we can't deny honestly. And we can see these same meta narratives in the Bible when people say, just like mythology, just like stories, that they're just another repetition of this. But I would say that it's the source of meta narratives of where all these other mythologies bounce off the Bible, not the other way around, or is the Bible's another one. And then I would go into apologetics about the Bible and about Judaism, Christianity, Jesus, God, the flood, Tower of Babel. All of these things are a lot of these things are proven historically to be true and accurate, and I won't go into all that now, but Bible, Christianity, Judaism, the oldest living, surviving religion, and biggest today is Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, I believe, are three biggest religions. And Christianity is development of Judaism. Judaism is the longest lasting religion, and Islam is just Islam. I guess you could say Christianity and Islam are both originally from Judaism, but the difference between Christianity and Islam is Islam was revealed to one person. There's no way to verify it, and it was divine to the person. Whereas Christianity, we have physical person Jesus, who is a historical figure that was proven he was alive and he lived, and a wide mass of followers of him, disciples, and witnesses to the truth of him dying and resurrecting from the cross, and spreading of Christianity. So it wasn't one person divine to that person, and then to people from there was divine coming on earth in person form who was verified, and many disciples in that. And while I guess Islam was persecuted at first, it quickly gained a big following, and it was a political presence, army, nation that developed quickly, became its own entity, whereas Christianity didn't have its own original language. You say Hebrew, but then quickly Greek and Aramaic, Latin, and then as it spread across the globe, all the other languages of the earth. So the true language of Christianity is translation, not a specific language. But people say the Bible has changed over time. But the remarkable consistency of the Bible, despite it coming from many different sources, at the beginning of the disciples, of people and then its translation, its development through time, its remarkable consistency from then isn't the little differences don't prove that it's false. It proves that it's true, because something that was false, that was made up, it would be consistent exactly throughout every translation, and it would be from a central point, group of people spread to the rest. Whereas the Bible wasn't written until the disciples were spread. Everybody was spread, and it wasn't made together, talked about together, and like we have the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and John, and they tell the same stories over and over again, but these stories are by different disciples and different places, different times, and yet they're remarkably consistent and similar. And differences just show that it was honest, because humans do make flaws and have flaws in their remembrance, or not just flaws, but there's also what they focused on. Each one had a little bit different focus. So they talked about some stories. John talked about that Peter didn't, or Matthew. Anyways, I'm getting way off topic, which is not surprising considering my ADHD. But yeah, meta narratives, beauty. And I think good stories show human nature, what human nature is like. Oh, that speed limit changed quickly. I did not see slow downs. We can see human nature doesn't ever change. The Bible describes it perfectly, and it's not inherently good. He has sin nature inside of him, and God's nature inside as well. And so we have these two things warring inside of us. And we know that until heaven, as Christians, there cannot be utopia, because there will be sin, and man will always, left alone to his own devices, will gravitate towards that. So we can't totally trust man. We need safeguards, and we need incentives for him to do good. And we need to be on guard, and we need order, and we need policing of man's sinful nature. And so things like socialism. Socialism is a utopian endeavor. to make everything equal, which is great, but just the fact that there's sin, we know that that's never going to be possible. There are people with mental handicaps. People just won't fit in society, won't do the things needed for society to be healthy and orderly. And we'll always have people trying to take advantage, take power, manipulate things for their advantage. And so if you rely on the goodwill of people only and to believe that you will look out for everyone else, their best interests, and we won't have any safeguards against you, then it's always going to fail. Someone's going to take advantage. Someone's going to corrupt and take power. And without those safeguards, then it'll be to the detriment of everyone else who is doing good. So unfortunately, we need that order. We need those laws. We need punishment in order to help good survive and thrive and peace be maintained. I think people don't understand that about even war. War is a necessary evil because human nature is flawed, and we just leave people to their own devices, then they're going to attack the weak. And as America is one of the top nations, being from Christian-based values, morals and principles, I think it's important for us to carefully step in when we need to. Genocides or evils going unchecked in other nations that are too weak for them to defend themselves, and other stronger nations are attacking them. And for ourselves as well, there are people who hate America. They hate what America stands for. It's evil working against America, and just leaving them alone. That's not why they hate America, because we're attacking them. Whether or not we attack them, they're going to hate us and they're going to attack us. And so we can sit there on the defensive, or we can go on the offensive and try to control and keep us free on our homeland. And that takes sacrifice. And these days people don't understand sacrifice is essential and important, and there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be some corruption, obviously, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do anything at all. In our utopian endeavors, we have very little grace for people we see that are not in these that are not falling within line what we think utopia should be. But one of our problems we can see is that everyone has a little bit different picture of what that should be, what that should look like. And some people say, it's global warming. That's what we need to focus on most. Some people say, it's the money, it's the economy we need to focus on most. Some say it's gender equality. All these things, they're not bad. There's good in them, but that's not the root of the issue. That's not the heart of the matter. And when we don't have a majority in line with that, or we aren't striving for the root of the issue, it's not going to solve the problem. The root of the problem is morals, his ethics, his not the Christian foundation, not pursuing God and recognizing human nature. Within Christianity, there should be equality. There should be let's treat the world right, the environment, the poorness that God made, and let's use money wisely. Let's help the poor, help the needy, be good stewards and graceful. So incorporates all of these things, but without Christianity, then equality, gender equality, becomes what is wrong about other people that I'm being taken advantage of, and it becomes all about ourselves, disguised or the fact of a cause that lots of people are talking about. As everyone has open their beliefs, so what that means becomes very individualistic and very flawed, very corrupted. Same thing with the economy. How am I being taken advantage of? What do I get out of this? All about me again, and can lead to potential corruption. I deserve this, but what about the person who's poorer than you? Well, we always demand sacrifice from others to make things better, but we're not willing to be the first sacrifice, to be first in that. It's easy to preach and crowds. It's unfair for us and other people need to change, but changing ourselves, that's a lot harder. Christianity says we must change ourselves first, before take the plank out of our own eye before the stone in someone else's eye. Change starts from within, and Christianity recognizes the importance of different functions in society. Of the individual, like I said, starts with us, individual. Then the family. Family is essential, and then the church, and then the government. Give Caesar what is Caesar's. Whereas America's very individualistic. It's about ourselves, but not. It's about freedom, which is good, but it is denying our communal base and our human nature need for community and community for order. And so when we're all individuals crying out for these things, then we are accountable to each other, and we are weaker individually than we are communally, and we're not learning from each other because we're separated. We're not talking, we're shouting at each other from faraway distances. And church is essential, but because of the way church is seen in popular media and mistakes made in the past, it's now seen as something archaic, something traditional, something that we do because our parents or grandparents were seen as the right thing to do. To look like a good person is part of our image. Whereas church is meant to be not a bunch of perfect people. Say, look how perfect I am. And I go to church, it's a bunch of broken people saying, look how broken I am. I need help, you need help, we all need help. Let's come together and help each other, and let's help each other refocus on what is most important, refocus on God, and praise Him for the good things. It's so easy for us to be negative and see the bad things, and for us to go off base, but being all together, praising Him, one body, community together towards one goal, one aim, and positive action and feeling, and sincere grace and love, truth. That's powerful. Something you don't get very often, and even in church, something that's hard to find. When you do, you know it's there, and you want to hold on to that. And it's something that's very good spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Hold on to a church like that. And politics, that has to be from a moral base. And the Constitution says we hold these truths to be self-evident. And that's saying there's absolute truth. There's something beyond ourselves, beyond individual basis, for truth, for life, for growth, and these laws aren't just something to be changed willy-nilly. They aren't based on just the opinions of the time. They all have a firmer foundation. Something, the meta-narrative is absolute truth, that throughout time, no matter how things change, that they have a basis for that, that still speak, that still act, still work. We know they work throughout history, and they have a basis, and they don't change. And that's where we get the living versus static constitution. And I think people fail to realize that the basis for these acts, these truths, that does not change. That is set. It's the absolute truth. But based on how we develop as a country, things may need to be altered, modified, expanded, whatever, to help society to maintain these truths. But people nowadays say that the Constitution is totally based upon the times, and the meaning changes depending on the time, and so we can kind of disregard the absolute truths that are based behind the constitutional laws, and so basically it becomes, instead of firm rocks, a foundation, and then build upon that, it's shifting sand, and there's no firm foundation, there's no basis, and so basically, when there's not that accountability, that firm foundation, a basis, then things easily corrupt again, and go wrong, and become individual based, or based on the times, the popular opinion at the time. We're seeing that today with these mandates that Obama is putting, these presidential, whatever we call it, and we have to recognize too, state versus national government. States, some say that the Civil War was actually there's a war based on states versus national government power, who has authority and power, and it's a really interesting thing about instead of slavery, and that seems to be true. Is Abraham Lincoln only put that in later, and people like Robert E. Lee, it was about states, and his home state of Virginia in the South, very dependent upon the slaves, and the way they did life, the agriculture, the economy, cotton and farming, and slaves, and so uh, was the North was factory based, and a bunch of immigrants coming in, and it's funny because while North, well, they had slaves, but it wasn't so heavy there. These immigrants were working very cheap, and it was basically almost slavery. So kind of hypocritical. But my point is that states obviously are more local, and there's less needs that are more personal based on that state, and so the state has much better understanding um, of what it needs, what the people's concerns are, um, and there's consequences if these are met, or people aren't happy. You see these people and you see the effects, and you live there. Or it's national. It's easy to disregard and brush over people, and you don't understand as well because um, you're looking at all 50 states together, not individual basis each state. So there's pros and cons each way. I think that unity is very important, and maybe is right that national trumps states, but national is becoming more and more powerful, and states becoming less and less, which so the power balance is shifting, which is bad, and that's the same for um, the legislative, judicial, and the other one, administrative, yeah. Um, but our government was set up to have these checks and balances, different parts of government, state and local, and the three branches of government to balance each other out, so that corruption wouldn't happen, so that power wouldn't shift to one or the other. But because of our loss of Christianity and morals, of our absolute truth, our firm rock, our foundations, um, these things are shifting. So power shifting, and it's much easier to do now um, that we denied uh, the past history, and we denied meta narratives and story, and history repeating itself, and we ignore the warning signs from other nations, socialism failing, of power grabbing by politicians, by people, and we ignore the moral basis for which a society needs to build its rock on to thrive and survive, and not be corrupt, and tragedy happen, and a society failing like Rome, like Egypt. Um, so America's in a very precarious situation, and in the moment we're living in, we can't. We can see that the wave is going down, but we don't know where that wave ends. We don't know if that ends, the lowest point ends of America as we know it failing, and what is as we know it, but breaking apart, um, or is it us recapturing a form of glory, um, and being better than ever before, even, um, and working past these things? Um, we don't know. So it's understandable people uh, crowd both sides, that America's headed down a dark path, which I believe is true. But also people crying out that you know they're overreacting, that um, things have always been up and down, which is also true. Um, but just because um, things have always been up and down doesn't mean that um, we shouldn't do anything. I think it's our responsibility as citizens, as Christians, as moral people, as community-based, caring for each other, to um, be active in society, um, be active for change within ourselves, within churches, within the government, to 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 cry out for truth, for love, grace, justice, all these things that freedom has made our nation great, and that continue to make our nation the greatest nation in the world, but that we are slowly rejecting and trying to forge a new path that's headed towards destruction.